Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so today we are going to be taking a look at collision detection. Whew. Remember, what we are doing here is building towards us making a simple video game. Okay, so that's ultimately what the problem is. All right, so here in level one, it's just showing you a sample program, something that could be. So it says run the program to see the robot bringing the bunny dinner. When the bunny reaches the bowl, they both stop walking and the bowl becomes empty. What code do you think could help the computer know when the two sprites are touching? So if we run it, boop. So obviously we have two sprites. We actually have two sprites for the bowl. We have a full bowl and an empty bowl. But something happens. Somehow the computer knows that these two individuals are touching each other. And obviously the bunny ate. So yummy. That was delicious, right? Okay. So like I said, this is just showing us a sample program of an interaction called touching, because these two are touching. I want to remind you that in a game, for example, if your sprite were to like jump up onto a floor, that floor is supposed to make them like stop. They can't fall through the floor. So again, this idea is that we are coming up with a new interaction called collision detection. When things touch, what happens? All right, so there's not a whole lot to do with bubble one other than to kind of like consider the program and think about the things that are going on there. So once you're done checking that out, go ahead and hit continue and go to the next one. Take a second. All right, computers use math to figure out whether two things are touching. Look at the math on lines 17 and 18 to see how the sprite properties are compared with their width to see if they are touching. Do this. Read the statement inside the draw loop and find out the sprite properties and how they are compared. Discuss with a partner. Why does the code use width and X properties and not height and Y properties? What do you want to write this code every time you check whether or not something is touching? All right, so let's check out lines 17 and 18 of this code. And there it is. That is insane. That is stupid complicated code. And no, I do not want to have to write all that out every single time two of my things touch.
Oh my god, that is a lot.
Right. So you remember how sometimes we have stuff that like is like simpler code, but it has stuff under the hood?
Yeah.
That's what this is. Like this is showing you what's under the hood when we do the collision touch. This is all the crap under the hood, which is insane. So yeah, like I said, up top, I think it's asking you to say what you think is going to happen. I said, heck no, this code is really complicated. I prefer to use shortcuts because as much as I do like computer coding, yeah, that's crazy. And again, it's just to make that happen, which again is nice. But I mean, look at all that. That's a lot.
That okay, for like that, just for
For that
just
little tiny interaction
yeah,
is
like just
all of this mess. That
like if I'm doing all this, the animation better be shooting, better be doing it all.
Right, like I'm
Everything
thinking,
getting
like I'm telling you, like if I got to do all this coding, like it better be like cleaning my room and my house and making me supper. I'm just saying,
yeah.
like I mean that's a lot. Okay, anyways, whew, I'm gonna bring it back together. All right, sorry, I just. Oof. So this is going back to the idea of we have stuff under the hood. This is what's going to be under the hood for us, guys. All right, so go ahead and hit finish. Once you have done, once you've answered, your little question there, do you want to do that? No. So let's take a look at bubble 3. So inside the draw loop, we can use something called is touching. Writing out the math every time you want to check whether or not two things are touching is insane. We just looked at it. But there is an is touching block, which has all of that mess under the hood. Which can check whether or not one sprite is touching another. So we have a target and we have the toucher and the touchy, I guess, right? The computer is still doing all the same math that we just saw that was super complicated, but you don't have to worry about it because, again, somebody already did all that work and it's under the hood. All right, inside the draw loop, drag the is touching block into the if block. And then don't forget to change the word sprite to bunny. Okay. And target to dinner. All right, so remember all that mess that we saw before? We are going to control all of that mess with a simple is touching. Let me find out where it is. There we go. Sprite and target. Pull that in. Bam. That's simple. So if and I forgot who the target was. Sprite is bunny, target is dinner. So if bunny is touching, oops, is touching dinner, and then we're going to run it. There you go. So I can do an is touching, or I can do all that crazy stupid math that I just saw in Bubble 2. I'm going to use the is touching box. Just saying. Because it'll check, is the sprite touching the target? In this case, I want to know, is my bunny touching the dinner plate? And if so, these things happen. Stop everything and change the empty bowl. So if the bunny is touching the dinner, then the bunny's velocity becomes X, the dinner's velocity becomes X, the robot's velocity becomes 0, and then the dinner changes its animation. All four of these things happen once my bunny is touching the dinner.
That seems a lot more easier and less complicated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, the first time I actually had to actually program it, I literally was crying. Literally.
Wait, so you telling me you telling me that you had to do all that complicated stuff before all the simpler stuff like is touching blocks were made?
Yes. Yeah. Well, actually, no. See, what happened was when I learned computer programming, there weren't as many shortcuts. So what we would do back then is we would make the program work one time, and then we just use copy and paste a lot. So once I figured out how to make it work, I would basically just create variables and then just change the names of my variables, but just copy and paste all the code that I already had
So
made.
copy and paste was your best friend back then.
Oh, yes, it was. Not gonna lie. It was like we were besties. We were on each other's Christmas card lists. Okay, bubble number 4. It says the blender should only turn on when the apple touches it. Do this. Use a new code that you have learned to check whether or not the blender is touching the apple. Use a conditional to make the blender shake when the apple is touching it. And then it says, hint, you will need to drag 2 different blocks into the workspace. Awesome. Okay, so let me run the program, see how it works originally. So, first of all, this should only be on when the apple gets in it. So, okay, let me figure out my grid. Reset, let me run it one more time. And it looks like the apple touches right here, which is about Y260-ish. All right. So, first thing first, I need a conditional. If touching, then I want to shake my blender. So I'm going to just steal that and grab it in there. So if apple is touching blender, then shake the blender, right? Okay. Run. There you go. So again, I made a conditional. If my apple is touching the blender, then the blender shakes. That's pretty much what it asked me to do. Let me double check. Use the conditional. Check, check, check. Awesome. Okay. All right. Issues or questions?
Okay, wait a minute. I missed some of that. I missed some of that. Oh
No
man.
worries. All right. Let me
got
start
I
over.
got one
I'm missing the part where
No worries.
yeah.
Miss Cano-Michael.
Yeah.
I moved on ahead. Like I was just working because
Hmm.
I know what to do now. But I'm on number 6, the games, or I forgot the name of it. Do I have to do these or
Yes.
practice?
You will have to do the like you are required. You are. I always take you through skill building. You are like your assignment really is to do the practice and the assessment, and then the
Okay.
challenges are the ones that are normally optional.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I don't remember who it was that kind of got lost a little bit.
I
So
did.
that's fine. So the first thing we are going to do is we're going to drag a conditional statement in, the if statement. Okay. The second thing we are going to do is we are going to make the condition as if they are touching. So I'm going to pull in a sprite is touching target into my Boolean statement. Okay. So I want to know if the apple, I'm going to change the word sprite to apple, is touching the blender, then I want my blender to shake. Well, I already have blender shaking code. That's this whole thing here. It says shake the blender, right? And it's right there. I'm literally just going to pick that up and drag it into my conditional. Okay? That way I don't have to like retype all of that. So now when I run it, my blender's not shaking until the apple touches the blender and then it begins to shake.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right? All right. So once that is done, we're going to go ahead and hit finish and continue. All right. Last one I'm doing with you. Debugging collisions. It says the balloon is popping before the tack touches it. You can use the debug block to get more information about the bug in the program. Run the code and use the arrow keys to move the tack to the balloon to pop it. In the code below, change the balloon.debug equals false to balloon.debug equals true. Okay. Add a new debug block to the code to send the text property to true. To run the code again and then discuss with your partner why the balloon is popping early. All right, so let me just run this. Okay, we are controlling the tack. Okay, so my tack, I'm using my arrow keys to control the tack, and it's not even like near the balloon, and yet it pops. All right, so let's check what's going on in the debug console. Okay, it doesn't really look like much of anything. Awesome. So in the code below, change the balloon debug dot false to true. Okay. If balloons and touching tack. Check and see the jacket. Huh. Interesting. Let me check the instructions one more time. Run the code. Yep, got it. In the code below, change balloon.debug equals false. Okay, so it said change it. Oh, there it is. To true. Okay. Add a new debug block to the code to set the tax property to debug to true. Okay. So notice, ladies and gentlemen, the we have the target and the sprite. So the sprite is the balloon, and I'm sorry, the sprite is the tack, and the what's it called? The target is the balloon. And it seems to have this little outline. Anytime my tack touches the green, it changes, right? So there has to then be a way to sort of, hopefully, I'm guessing, make this square around the balloon smaller, because otherwise anytime you touch that outer rim, it's going to pop. So it's not that they're actually themselves touching. Instead, what it is that they have these sort of artificial exteriors or artificial borders. So we need to figure out a way to make the border smaller, but I don't think that's within the purview of this. All right, so finish. Okay, so for collision practice, we have A and B. So the bunny and the sunshine, and then circle colliders right here. And then on the assessment, ladies and gentlemen, when the rainbow touches the horse, we want the horse to turn into a unicorn. Okay? So you have the remainder of the time to work through bubbles 6 and 7. As always, our challenge bubble is going to be optional. But at this time, go ahead and get to work. And as always, if you have any issues or questions, please ask.